we want to bring into the show our good friend Debbie Binder. She's a West Bloomfield Township Clerk. Those that watch the show, you know Debbie quite well. Are you rested up yet after the election?
We're getting there. I can't say we're quite rested up. It's, there's still a lot of activity surrounding the election, but we are, we definitely are in slower times and able to take a much needed breath because we were in hyperdrive working overtime and to make that election happen. So it is a bit of a relief right now. We joke, we go from 100 miles an hour to down to zero quickly. So it's a little bit of a letdown, except it's also a relief. So we're getting there. We're trying to still catch up on sleep that we lost for probably 9 months out of this year with all of the election times.
So we won't, we're not even going to dig into this was a crazy election. Probably the craziest that so many people remember in recent history, and probably the craziest for you and your team and so many other people here in the state of Michigan. So let's just put the politics aside and forget the lawsuit and all the craziness that is still going on surrounding this previous election. And can you just give us some general information about what happens after the election for you and your team members?
Well, we like to, after there's still a lot of follow up because there's an audit that's done of every precinct. The County Board of Canvassers looks through every single precinct, does an audit of every precinct in every jurisdiction. So there's a lot of preparation of, you turn the materials over for that, and then you have to do any explanation of anything that's out of balance. Or digging into things to explain something that's out of balance. So there's a lot of follow-up work. And then there's a retention schedule that you keep all of your ballots locked up in case there was a recount. And then once they're removed, they go into a different storage bag where they're held for a retention period. So as are the applications. So there's a lot of administrative follow-up work to an election. So we have still been working on that. And then we will start also taking, while it's fresh in our mind, we take the lessons learned from one election. We have a powwow to come up with ideas, things that work, things that didn't work, so that we plan differently where needed for next year. While it's still fresh, because there comes a point at which you don't remember every little detail. So last week we did have that meeting, and I'll be having the meeting in the upcoming week with more of my election workers to again get feedback and get comments and guidelines to do things differently, next time. That being said, it has been a very crazy year, but this was overall a pretty, smooth election as far as things go. What we did have this time was a very high turnout. We had, we always have high turnout in West Bloomfield, but between an increase in registered voters, we have over 56,600 registered voters in West Bloomfield right now. We had a 79% turnout. And of the turnout, we had 75% of those ballots were cast by absentee. So we were really busy beforehand issuing ballots and working with the absentee voting population. That kept us busy. And then the follow-up is just all of the administrative stuff that takes place after every single election. The audit that takes place after every single election. So we've been busy with those things, but we are finding time now where my staff was working overtime, beyond what they ever wanted. Now everybody gets a chance to get a little bit of a breather. And I'm just so proud of my staff and for what they did to make this election go, to happen with the number of ballots that we issued. Twice as many absentee ballots as we've ever had. And with West Bloomfield, I know we spoke many times on this program that each of our ballots was a two-sheet ballot. That was 4 times the number of pages we've ever processed. So I'm just proud of my team in the office. I'm proud of my election workers. Did a great job. They got the job done. We're obviously in a pandemic environment for 2 and really probably 3 of the elections. We took precautions. We made sure everybody had PPE that they needed. Some of the processing in the AV County Board does not provide for social distancing. So we took extra precautions to keep people safe. And as far as I know, we had no spread that came from working in an election. So I'm just proud of my staff. I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of my election workers. And I'm proud of the fact that everyone took this seriously, took the job seriously, and took the precautions seriously to conduct an election in a COVID environment and throw in a little bit of luck. I'm not going to lie. There's a little bit of luck that's involved too in managing a staff of about 400 people where we had 105 in the absent voter counting board and over 20 in my office on many days, and we were able to prevent any spread. So there was a lot of effort involved, but there was also some luck. I'm grateful that it played out for as it did, and grateful that everybody in the community that contributed to helping get the word out. One other thing I'd like to bring up, Ronnie, because I really do credit you and Tyler for helping get this word out. I remember, if you remember, we talked about in August, 20% of our absentee ballots came in on election day. That created quite a challenge for us to verify signatures and do the stuff that we do when they come in late like that on election day. Using that messaging that you helped us get out, we reduced the number of ballots that came in on election day from 20% of our ballots to 4% of our ballots came in on election day. So that means in an election that was twice the size, we had less than half the number of absentee ballots that came in on election day. Made it much easier for us to conduct, the absent voter counting board on election day. And I thank you guys for your involvement in helping get that message out. It clearly made a difference. That's a significant, benefit to the board.
And with that, though, we're always happy to help because it's such a small portion of what you and your team does each and every day. But with that, do you think this next election, the way of the absentee ballot is going to be the way of the future? Is that number going to continue to grow, or did we just see it because we were also in the middle of a pandemic?
I think the answer will lie somewhere in the middle. I think you will see an increase that was allowed with Proposal 3 of 2018 and people who were given the right to vote by absentee for no reason. I think you will see that some of those voters that make that choice because it's an easier choice. There's people who like to sit at their table and vote, but I think you will also see people who made that choice based on the pandemic. I am typically a poll voter. I like to go to the polls. I like to cast my ballot there. I like to see people. I like to leave with my sticker. And I believe that when it's not in a pandemic year, I will return to the polls. So I think that the answer will be, I think this is a heavily absentee turnout year, but I don't think we'll go back to the old numbers before Proposal 3 either. I think somewhere in the middle will lie the answer, to be seen.
I'm with you. I like to go and actually feed it into the machine and then get my sticker. There's just some type of satisfaction with that. And Debbie, I know that your hands are tied on how the absentee ballots are actually processed because there is a state law. But what would you like to see change in that process going through this past election that could help you and your team so that it's a cleaner process going forward?
First, I guess I would say I think it is a very clean process, and it's not. And I trust when I cast my ballot by absentee, I have complete trust in the process. But I do think that it's a monumental task that's given to the clerks in an age where absentee ballot, even if it goes back down a little bit, you're still going to see the number of absentee ballots at a much higher level than we've ever seen before. So you're looking at clerks who have to meet the demands of processing an increased number of absentee ballots. I think we need to look at increasing the number of days, and it may be something that they need to look at early voting where people can come in and feed their ballot. Early voting does not mean early tabulating. It just means that the voter comes and feeds their ballot through the machine. Machines are not tabulated until the polls are closed. There's no tabulating that's done. So they would be feeding their own ballot, allowing that time ahead of time to count them, or possibly looking at early voting. I'm not sure that I know enough to say what I think the best approach is, but I do think that we need to have a study and look at these numbers are not going to go back to small elections. I don't believe you're seeing more of an engaged electorate. You're seeing more people participate in absentee voting. We won't see the numbers go back to small elections. So I think we do need to look going forward. How can we best meet the needs that will be placed on clerks, the demands placed on clerks going forward to process an ever increasing number of absentee ballots? Also recognizing that in most cases, there's an increase in registered voters. We saw a huge increase in registered voters as well. So I think we're looking at constantly increasing numbers in engaged electorate. We need to make sure we can meet those demands. Every clerk I know works so hard to make sure that every voter's voice is heard. So we just want to make sure that it's a reasonable demand going forward. The numbers aren't going to go back.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you just brought up because I think for the general public, a lot of people just think that one of the reasons that you can't actually process some of the ballots earlier is because there is a fear that the information is going to get out about this party or that party. So maybe some people won't vote or this, that, and the other. But if no numbers are even tabulated, what's the difference if I run it through, 3 days before versus 7 o'clock that morning?
You know, there's probably concern that there's people in there but they take an oath to not share information. It's a sequestered board, and there are a lot of logistics that would need to be worked out that I don't have the expertise to say how are we going to work out some of those logistics. Early voting, the voter actually puts their ballot through. Again, the results aren't tabulated. So which approach is the best going forward, I think is worthy of discussion and exploration. That being said, what we've done now, again, I am a poll voter just because I like the energy, but it's not because I don't trust the process of absentee voting. I'm very confident in the process of absentee voting as it is. I just think that looking at logistics to allow for time would help clerks, especially clerks that get a large volume to process in a very short period of time. And again,
So
I looking at other states, there are so many other states that have different dynamics where it works out. I think it's worthy of exploring what works well in other states. We don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We can look at how we meet the demands that are coming in a way that has worked in other places.
and with that, does it take more poll workers to be able to process when you have more absentee ballots?
Yes, we increased all of our numbers this year. We increased the number that were in the precinct as well, because it just wasn't predictable exactly where our turnout was going to be. But in an absent voter counting board, they work in teams. And there's actually 5 team captains overseeing a team of 5 precincts in each one. And each precinct has 3 people working on the ballots. And multiple parties, at least the 2 major parties, plus any additional parties, are represented and involved in a lot of the processes, as well as challengers being in the room overseeing it. So we have had to, just by the nature of the increase, we've had to increase the number of people we've had in the absent voter counting board to make sure that each team has the support they need to meet the demands. And remember, we get a lot of military and overseas voters. We have a lot of military and overseas voters that vote, and those ballots come in on an electronic version that they get, and they have to be duplicated onto a ballot that will go through the tabulator. That duplication takes place in a team of 2 different people representing 2 different parties, where they read back and forth. We use a process called read and verify, where one person reads, the other person verifies, then the other person reads back, the other person verifies. So there's a dual check in there to make sure that it's accurate. But all of our military and overseas ballots do come back that way, and every one of our service people deserve a right to be heard. And it takes tremendous effort to make sure that all of those ballots are duplicated. And that was one of the things. We had a large number this year of military and overseas ballots.
Well, the good thing is that the numbers are increasing because I think that's the positive that came out of this past election. So many more people are taking advantage of the process that other people fought for and died for them to have the right to vote and have their voices heard. So it's great that people are actually taking advantage of that. Debbie, do you have a number at all with how many votes were spoiled because people didn't do simple things like didn't fill in things correctly or this, that, and the other?
I have to check the final number. As far as late ballots, we only had about 29 that were late. And we had last I checked, I think it was like a little over 100 that for some other reason, weren't counted, whether there wasn't a ballot inside, the signature didn't match, we didn't reach the person. When we get a signature that doesn't match or a signature that's missing, that verification takes place as soon as we receive the ballot back, because we're looking to give a voter an opportunity to cure the problem. So if they forgot to sign or they used it, if the signature doesn't match, we're in contact with that voter, if we can be, to give them an opportunity to come up and cure the signature issue, whether it's signing a new registration form or signing again on the ballot, or signing it if they forgot. Those processes take place. I know we had a lot of people that we reached that said, wow, you really do check. We really do check. So we, and we ended up, it was funny. We had one that a duo that came in that had received calls, and it turned out to be a mother and daughter. And we had no clue until they walked in the door. And the mother and daughter had both received calls to come in and cure a signature issue. So, we are doing that early. As soon as we get the ballots, we address the signature issues so that that voter has an opportunity to cure.
That is important because my signature is all over the place. So you really do have to pay attention to how you sign things and have an official signature that you use on all documents.
And Ronnie, some of it, because we'll go back to there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people talking about that. We were looking at what somebody signed when they were 18 on their voter registration card, but we're looking at their license. So if you sign their license, what your license looks like, you're almost guaranteed to be okay. If we have a question, we have a file of what we call MasterCards that we'll go look at the MasterCards as well to verify the signature. We did have a woman who came in and she felt badly because hers turned out to be rejected. And she said, my signature is so sloppy. I just took such painstaking efforts to make it perfect so you could read it. Well, it didn't match what was on her license, and she never received our messages to come in and cure the problem. And that is what it is sometimes. People think, okay, well, I have a scribble signature as my normal signature, and I'm going to make sure that they can read my name very clearly. Well, we're looking at it compared to what is your scribble signature on your license. That's the one we're looking to match to.
That's good information to know. Debbie Binder here with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. She's the West Bloomfield Township Clerk. Debbie, you have other responsibilities in your office there outside of just the election. Do you want to give us an update on where other things are standing right now? And is your office open to the public?
Our office is open to the public. So if anybody needs something that a clerk's office would do, we are absolutely open to the public. Our staffing is such that we have one person who's there full time because the window has been quieter, and to just accommodate and make it safer for COVID, we're trying to keep the concentration of people in the office down. So we're going in on an as needed basis, but there is at least one person there, if not more, at all times. And the phones are answered during normal business hours. We are doing business in the clerk's office, open for business for walk-in, available for calls, and any of the processes that we normally would be doing are available. We're still having meetings, we're still preparing agendas, we're still doing follow-up on the agendas. We're gearing up. We did take a break from passports, and because the break with COVID turned out to be a little bit longer than we realized, we have to go through a recertification. So we will be open in February again for passports, but everything else we're doing right now.
What are some of the other services that people need to visit the clerk's office for?
Well, we're the Freedom of Information Act coordinator for the township. So anything that's a Freedom of Information request comes through our office. Anything that has to do with an agenda, or the agenda goes through our office. We procure the materials for the agenda. We do the follow-up on the agenda. We meet the availability of, most of our agenda and follow-up things are available online now. But we are always kind of a point person for anybody to contact. We do a lot of the licensing and permits that aren't related to building through the township. We are oftentimes the hub that people contact first for anything in the township, and we direct to the correct place for information. We do passport acceptance agency. We offer notary services. We have maps available. And we're just kind of the cog in the wheel for a lot of different areas in town hall. If you needed a place to start, we're the place you would start, and we would make sure you went to the correct place that you were trying to reach.
Well, that's good to know. Debbie, anything that maybe I didn't touch on that you want to share with the viewers and the listeners before we let you go?
Just that I hope everyone has a safe and healthy holiday season. I appreciate you entrusting me to continue as your clerk. I promise you that I will serve you as I've always done and do my best and with integrity and honesty. I am grateful for the opportunity, and I want to let you know that the clerk's office is accessible. I'm accessible. We're a big town. We're 67,000 residents and 56,600 registered voters, but we're small enough that if you call the township, you're going to get me on the phone. And I welcome people, calling 248-451-4848 if you have any questions or you want to speak.
Debbie, great to have you with us. Happy holidays to you and your family as well.